Marcus Vex reclined in his opulent living room, the warm glow of a crystal decanter casting an amber hue across his chiseled features. The air was thick with the scent of high-end cigars and expensive perfume, a testament to his lavish lifestyle as Neo-Chicago's preeminent broker of false memories. With a contented sigh, he raised the ornate blast to his lips, savoring the smooth, aged liquid. For years, Marcus had exploited people's deepest desires by providing fabricated recollections that altered their past. He reveled in the power it granted him, molding lives at will while reaping a fortune. As he took another sip of scotch, Marcus heard an unexpected knock at the door. His eyes narrowed suspiciously behind designer sunglasses perched atop his head. Rarely did anyone disturb him without prior arrangement. He called out to the intercom, "State your business." A soft voice responded through the speaker, "I'm here for a meeting with Marcus Vex." Marcus recognized the sultry tone as belonging to Lena Rourke, an enigmatic figure in Neo-Chicago's underbelly known for her rare and valuable memory commodities. They had crossed paths before, but their encounters were always brief and clandestine. "What makes you think I'm interested in meeting?" he asked, his tone laced with skepticism. "I have something that might pique your interest," Lena replied cryptically. Marcus's curiosity was piqued despite himself. He pressed the button to open the secured entrance, watching through a security camera as Lena entered his penthouse apartment. The petite woman, dressed in a black leather jacket and tight pants, exuded an aura of mystery and danger. Her raven hair fell in loose waves around her pale skin, complemented by piercing emerald eyes that seemed to hold secrets she would never share. "Well?" Marcus prompted impatiently, gesturing for Lena to take a seat on the plush sofa beside him. "What exactly do you have that's so intriguing?" Lena settled into the cushion with an air of nonchalance, though her gaze remained fixed intently on Marcus. She reached into the inner pocket of her jacket and produced a small, unmarked vial filled with a milky liquid. "This is not like anything I've ever seen before," she stated matter-of-factly, extending it towards him. "It's a truth memory undeniably real, and I'm willing to part with it for the right price." Marcus's brows arched in surprise and suspicion. He took the vial, holding it up to catch the light. The contents shimmered with an otherworldly quality that sent shivers down his spine. "Why are you selling this?" he asked, intrigued despite himself. Lena leaned forward, her eyes locking onto Marcus's with an unspoken challenge. "Because I know what it can do, and I want to see the look on your face when you experience something real for once." Marcus felt a thrill of anticipation mixed with weariness. The prospect of possessing a genuine memory was intoxicating, yet he knew it came with risks. What if it exposed his own falsified recollections? Or worse, what if it unlocked secrets? He would have to weigh the potential consequences against his desire for control. "You're asking a king's ransom," he said, feigning nonchalance as he examined the vial with renewed interest. Lena merely smiled, her eyes glinting with an air of defiance. "I'm prepared to negotiate." Marcus knew that this was not an ordinary memory. It was something extraordinary, and if Lena Rourke believed it was worth selling, then perhaps there was more value in it than he initially thought. For a price he would surely pay, Marcus made his decision. "I'll take it," he said, the vial clutched firmly in his hand. "But be warned, Lena, I always get what I want." As Marcus slipped the vial into a hidden compartment within his desk drawer, he couldn't help but feel an exhilarating sense of anticipation. This was no ordinary transaction. Lena Rourke had sold him a piece of truth itself, a memory that would undoubtedly reshape the power dynamics in Neo-Chicago's shadowy underworld. The hours passed with agonizing slowness as Marcus awaited dawn to test his new acquisition. Finally, he could endure the suspense no longer and rose from his chair, pacing around his opulent penthouse apartment like a caged beast. His thoughts were consumed by visions of what this truth memory might reveal, the secrets buried beneath layers of deception, the hidden machinations of the elite. With the first blush of morning light creeping through his floor-to-ceiling windows, Marcus retreated to his private laboratory, a sterile, white-walled space where he could indulge in his true passion for experimentation. He removed a small syringe from its case and carefully extracted a single drop of the memory's essence from the vial. A few quick injections later, and Marcus felt an odd tingling sensation coursing through his veins. The room around him began to blur, replaced by vivid flashes of scenes he'd never witnessed before. Snippets of conversations that were not his own, glimpses of events he had no knowledge of. It was overwhelming, the sheer volume of new information assaulting his senses. And yet, there was a clarity, an undeniable authenticity to these memories that set them apart from the fabricated recollections he'd grown accustomed to trading in. Marcus felt like he'd been given a window into someone else's life, a life far more complex and intricate than his own. As the effects of the memory began to subside, Marcus found himself standing before a large, floor-to-ceiling mirror that had hung unnoticed in the corner of his lab for years. He stared at his reflection, his eyes probing every detail as if seeing himself for the first time. This was power, the kind he'd craved for so long, now firmly within his grasp. Marcus felt invincible, capable of manipulating reality itself. But as he continued to examine his own face in the mirror, a nagging doubt began to take root, a suspicion that perhaps this truth memory wasn't merely exposing others' secrets, but also threatening to unravel his own carefully constructed identity. With a sense of foreboding settling over him, Marcus turned away from the mirror and made his way back to his desk. He needed time to process everything he'd just experienced, and to devise a plan for how best to exploit this newfound knowledge in order to expand his influence. As the day wore on, the truth memory continued to whisper secrets into Marcus's ear, a constant flow of information that both thrilled and terrified him. By nightfall, he was already plotting his next move, armed with an unprecedented level of insight into Neo-Chicago's shadowy elite. The city, once a labyrinth of mystery and deception, now seemed laid bare before him, and Marcus Vex was ready to claim it as his own, the puppeteer pulling the strings from behind the scenes, orchestrating a revolution that would reshape the very fabric of their dystopian society, if he could keep hold of the truth memory's power long enough to see it through. Marcus Vex stood at the threshold of his penthouse laboratory, gazing out over Neo-Chicago's sprawling skyline. As night fell upon the city, he couldn't help but feel a sense of dark exhilaration, his mind buzzing with the secrets and lies he'd uncovered in recent days. The truth memory had proven to be an extraordinary tool, revealing not only hidden truths about those around him, but also his own buried past that seemed more myth than memory. Yet despite its power, there remained an unsettling quality to it, an aura of danger that Marcus could neither ignore nor fully comprehend. He turned away from the window and began pacing the room, lost in thought. The truth memory had already served him well, allowing him to infiltrate the city's highest echelons and gather intel on potential clients for his black market memory brokering services. But he knew that its full potential was still untapped, a vast reservoir of information waiting to be exploited. As Marcus reached out to grasp a nearby glass vial filled with an elixir, his fingers brushed against the smooth surface of the truth memory implant at his temple. He felt a sudden shiver run down his spine as he recalled Lena's enigmatic words, "The memories you hold within your mind can reshape reality." With a deep breath, Marcus decided to push beyond the boundaries he'd thus far maintained, using the truth memory not only to uncover secrets, but also to alter the lives of others. It was time to apply his newfound knowledge in more concrete ways, to engineer the kind of changes that would ultimately solidify his position as Neo-Chicago's most influential figure. The next morning, Marcus arrived at the exclusive Sapphire Club with an air of quiet confidence. The truth memory implant seemed to hum softly against his temple, guiding him toward his intended target, a high-profile businessman rumored to be involved in clandestine dealings. As he entered the opulent surroundings, Marcus's eyes scanned the room, searching for any sign of his prey. His gaze fell upon a tall, imposing figure standing at the bar, a man whose face was vaguely familiar yet seemed to blur when examined too closely. Marcus approached him with a charismatic smile. introducing himself as Victor Krov, a successful entrepreneur looking to expand his interests in Neo-Chicago's lucrative black market. Over drinks and casual conversation, Marcus began probing Victor's business dealings, all the while subtly weaving a web of false memories into their interaction. He suggested investments and alliances that would benefit both their operations, slowly gaining Victor's trust through carefully crafted lies and half-truths. By the time they parted ways, it was clear that Victor would soon become one of Marcus's most valuable contacts, a man indebted to him for his guidance and connections in Neo-Chicago's treacherous underworld. As Marcus walked away from the Sapphire Club, he couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction. He had successfully deployed the truth memory for the first time, bending reality to suit his own ambitions. But as he made his way back to his penthouse laboratory, a sudden, inexplicable chill ran down his spine, a feeling that something was amiss, something he couldn't quite put into words. His fingers tightened around the vial of elixir in his pocket, and for an instant, Marcus wondered if the truth memory itself might be the source of this unease, a reminder that its power came at a price far greater than he had ever imagined. Despite these misgivings, Marcus pressed on, driven by a hunger for influence and control. He returned to his laboratory, where he began analyzing the fragments of Victor's memories they'd shared in conversation, the bits and pieces that could be used as leverage in future dealings. As the hours passed, Marcus grew increasingly immersed in the intricate dance of false memories and truth memory manipulation, a world where deception became an art form and reality itself was but a distant echo. And with each passing moment, he felt himself becoming more adept at weaving this complex tapestry, the master puppeteer pulling strings unseen by anyone except perhaps Lena Rourke herself. Yet even as Marcus reveled in his newfound abilities, the truth memory's whispers continued to haunt him, a constant reminder that his every action might have unforeseen consequences. As night descended once again upon Neo-Chicago, he found himself standing before the same window where he had first gazed out over the city, contemplating the true cost of wielding such power. In the darkness outside, a single red light flickered to life, Lena's signal, a beacon calling him toward an uncertain future. And as Marcus responded, his heart raced with anticipation, knowing that each step forward would bring him closer to either glory or ruin. And there was no turning back. As Marcus stepped out onto his rooftop, the cool night air carried with it a hint of salt from the distant sea. Below, Neo-Chicago's neon-drenched skyline stretched out like a living entity, pulsing to the rhythm of the city's restless energy. Lena's signal light wavered on the horizon, a beacon, calling him toward secrets both tantalizing and dangerous. Marcus descended into the shadows, his mind racing with possibilities. The truth memory he now possessed was a double-edged sword capable of bending reality to his will, yet also threatening to consume him from within. Sword one that could be used to elevate him among the elite or destroy everything he'd built. Yet he couldn't shake the sensation that Lena had more than memories to offer, something far greater and more profound. He crossed through deserted alleyways, each step bringing him closer to his mysterious contact. The city's underbelly unfolded before him, a tapestry of dark alleys, hidden corners, and forgotten histories. Here, amidst the shadows, was where true power resided, not in the gilded towers of Neo-Chicago's elite, but among those who wielded knowledge as a weapon. At last, he arrived at an unassuming door nestled between two crumbling buildings, a nondescript entry that belied the secrets within. Marcus knocked twice, the signal agreed upon, and the door slid open with a soft hiss. He stepped inside to find himself in a dimly lit chamber filled with rows of computer terminals and shelves laden with encrypted data capsules. The air was thick with the scent of burning circuitry, a telltale sign that Lena's underground operation was both sophisticated and volatile. "Lena," Marcus called out, his voice echoing off the concrete walls. A figure emerged from the shadows, a woman with raven black hair and piercing green eyes that seemed to hold worlds within their depths. "Marcus," she replied, her voice low and husky, a siren's call in the darkness. She led him deeper into the chamber, toward a central console where several screens flickered with code and schematics. Marcus couldn't help but notice the contrast between Lena's rugged, street-smart appearance and the refined elegance of his own persona, two sides of the same coin, both forged from the city's darkest corners. "Lena," he began, his tone measured, "the memory you sold me, it's proving problematic. I'm experiencing strange sensations, hallucinations." She turned to face him, her expression unreadable. "That's because it's not just a memory, it's a piece of the truth." "The truth?" Marcus repeated, feeling a shiver run down his spine. "Yes," Lena confirmed, "and with it comes consequences that could alter the course of Neo-Chicago's history." She paused as if choosing her next words carefully. "I didn't just sell you a memory. I gave you access to something much greater, a weapon capable of destroying this city's corrupt foundation." Marcus felt a surge of excitement mixed with fear. "What do you mean?" Lena gestured toward the screens behind her. "These are records from the government's own archives documents, detailing their darkest secrets, corruption at the highest levels. With your ability to manipulate memories and this truth memory as leverage," a plan began to take shape in Marcus's mind, the possibility of using the truth memory to expose Neo-Chicago's rulers for what they truly were, a corrupt cabal, with no regard for the city or its people. "But there's a risk," Lena continued, her voice laced with urgency. "The government won't go down without a fight. If we're caught..." Marcus steeled himself against the potential consequences. He had come too far and sacrificed too much to turn back now. "I understand the risks," he said firmly, "but I also see an opportunity to reshape Neo-Chicago in our image, free from corruption, to create a new world order where power resides with those who truly deserve it. This city in our image." Lena nodded, a hint of a smile playing on her lips. "Then let's make it happen." And with that, she reached out and took his hand, a gesture both intimate and symbolic, as they stepped into the unknown together. Neo-Chicago's darkness outside mirrored the unease in Marcus's chest as he followed Lena through the winding underground tunnels that made up her resistance stronghold. The faint hum of machinery and the muffled sound of hushed conversations created an unsettling atmosphere, a far cry from the sterile elegance of his memory brokerage. "Lena, tell me more about this truth memory," he asked once they had reached a small, dimly lit chamber filled with rows of data terminals. "How does it work? And why are you so confident in its ability to bring down the government?" Lena walked up to one of the screens and tapped at the interface before turning back to face him. "The truth memory is different from anything else on the black market," she began, her eyes gleaming with an intensity Marcus had never seen before. "It's a genuine recollection, a piece of someone's actual past which has been extracted, cleaned, and prepared for transplantation into another person's mind." Marcus raised an eyebrow skeptically. "And you claim this is true? How can we be certain?" "Because I was there," Lena said quietly, her gaze dropping to the floor. A sudden chill ran down Marcus's spine as he recalled Victor, a powerful businessman with ties to the highest echelons of Neo-Chicago's elite, and his role in Marcus's own past. "What does Victor have to do with this?" he asked, his voice tinged with suspicion. "Krav and his people were involved in an underground research project aimed at harnessing the power of memories," Lena explained. "They believed that by manipulating or implanting false recollections, they could control individuals, bend them to their will, and use them as pawns in their quest for dominance." Marcus felt a wave of nausea wash over him. The subject's mind couldn't handle the influx of foreign memories, and it destroyed not just their perception of reality, but also their entire sense of identity. Marcus shook his head, trying to wrap his thoughts around this horrifying concept. "So you're saying that this memory isn't just true, it's a window into the darkest aspects of Victor Krav's empire?" Lena nodded gravely. "We can use the truth memory to reveal the extent of their control and manipulation, showing the city's inhabitants that they've been living." As Lena outlined her plan, Marcus felt his resolve hardening. He had once operated in much the same way as Viktor Krov, with cunning, ambition, and no qualms about bending or breaking rules to achieve his goals. But he had never intended for such harm to befall innocent people. Now, faced with the opportunity to make a real difference, perhaps even save lives, he knew he couldn't turn back. "I'm with you," Marcus said firmly, extending his hand in a pact. "Let's bring this corrupt city down." Marcus and Lena worked tirelessly over the next few weeks, crafting their plan to expose Neo-Chicago's corruption through the truth memory. They combed through archives, hacked into secure databases, and infiltrated high-level meetings, all while Marcus honed his ability to implant and manipulate memories. Their efforts paid off when they uncovered a web of deceit woven into every level of society. False histories, altered records, and fabricated narratives all contributed to the city's pervasive sense of unreality. Neo-Chicago's leaders had crafted an elaborate illusion designed to maintain that grip on power. Finally, the day arrived for Marcus and Lena to put their plan into action. They gathered at a nondescript warehouse on the outskirts of town, preparing to broadcast the truth memory to every corner of the city. As they waited for the signal, Marcus felt a strange tingling sensation in his fingertips, an unsettling reminder of the power he now wielded. The moment arrived, and with it, a wave of raw emotion swept through Neo-Chicago. The city's inhabitants were forced to confront the lies that had dictated their lives, and in doing so, they began to question everything they thought they knew. In the midst of this chaos, Marcus and Lena watched as the effects of their actions unfolded before them. They witnessed protests erupting across the city, with citizens demanding answers from those who had betrayed their trust. The once invincible government crumbled under the weight of its own deception, and a growing resistance movement began to coalesce of his life and possibly determine the fate of the city itself. As the authorities closed in on their hideout, Marcus stood at a crossroads, his future hanging precariously in the balance. Without hesitation, Marcus seized his chance to act. He activated a series of encrypted protocols on his memory implant, creating a temporary shield that masked both his identity and location from any tracking devices. Then he grabbed an assault rifle from the weapons cache and slipped out into the darkness, following the breadcrumbs of encrypted communications to pinpoint Lena's whereabouts. As he moved through the shadows, Marcus couldn't shake off the gnawing uncertainty within him. Was he doing the right thing? Was it worth risking everything for a stranger, no matter how intriguing her story? Wore the garb of a fugitive, a black jumpsuit that blended with the night. Beside him, Lena was equally nondescript in her own attire. Together, they navigated the alleys of Neo-Chicago, pursued by both the forces loyal to Viktor Krov and those who sought to overthrow his tyrannical rule. "We need a safe house," Marcus murmured as they paused at an intersection, listening for any signs of pursuit. "Somewhere we can regroup without being traced." "I know a place," Lena said, her voice low and husky despite the tension etched on her features. "It's not far from here. We can make it before dawn if we move quickly." Marcus nodded, his mind racing with strategies for their next move. The truth memory had given them unprecedented leverage against Neo-Chicago's corrupt elite, but they needed to use this advantage wisely. With Krov's goons closing in and the resistance desperate for an inside man, the stakes were higher than ever. As they turned a corner into a narrower alley, Marcus sensed something was off. The shadows seemed darker here, more menacing. He slowed his pace, hand instinctively drifting towards the knife hidden in his boot. "Marcus?" Lena whispered urgently, noticing his unease. "What is it?" "I don't know," he replied quietly, scanning their surroundings. "It just doesn't feel right." Suddenly, a figure emerged from the gloom ahead of them, a tall, imposing man with a cruel sneer etched on his face. Marcus recognized him immediately as Viktor Krov's personal enforcer, Yuri Sokolov. "Well, well," Sokolov drawled, his voice dripping with malice. "Look what we've caught. The infamous memory broker and his little resistance whore." Lena lunged at the man with a savage cry, her fists flying in a desperate bid for freedom. Marcus followed suit, drawing his knife as he charged forward. But Sokolov was no ordinary thug. He'd been trained by Krov himself to be a ruthless killing machine. The ensuing battle was brutal and intense, a whirlwind of punches, kicks, and slashing blades that left all three combatants battered and bruised. Marcus fought with every ounce of skill and cunning at his disposal, but Sokolov's sheer strength and brutality made him a formidable opponent. As the fight raged on, Marcus began to realize that chances of escape were dwindling. Sokolov was too powerful, and Lena was taking a beating she couldn't withstand for much longer. With a gut-wrenching awareness that he might lose his only ally in this treacherous game, Marcus made a split-second decision. He feinted towards Sokolov's face, then dropped low to avoid the man's retaliatory strike. As he rolled out of the way, he plunged his knife deep into Sokolov's side, the same spot where Krov had once wounded him. The enforcer howled in agony, clutching at the blade as Marcus surged forward to pin him against the alley wall. "You won't touch her again," Marcus growled, his eyes locked on Sokolov's. "Not while I still draw breath." In a final act of defiance, Sokolov spat in Marcus's face, a gesture that spoke volumes about the depth of hatred between them. But before he could summon another attack, Lena appeared at Marcus's side, her own knife poised to strike. "No more," she whispered, her voice trembling with rage and sorrow. "He dies tonight." Marcus hesitated, a flicker of doubt passing through him. This was not what they'd set out to do, a murder in the dark alleys of Neo-Chicago. But Sokolov's cruel fate had been sealed by his own hand. He was beyond redemption. With a heavy heart, Marcus nodded, and together they ended Sokolov's life. As the enforcer slumped to the ground, dead eyes staring up into nothingness, Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. They'd crossed a line tonight, one from which there could be no return. "We need to move," Lena urged, wiping her blade clean on Sokolov's tattered jacket. "Before more of them show up." Marcus nodded grimly, pocketing his own knife and reaching out for Lena's hand. Together they fled into the night, leaving behind a body that would surely be discovered sooner rather than later. Their escape was short-lived, however. As they burst through a door hidden in the alley's shadows, Marcus found himself face to face with none other than Viktor Krov himself. The man's cold gaze sent shivers down Marcus's spine even as he stood tall, ready for whatever came next. "Marcus Bex," Krov said, his voice dripping with disdain. "I've been expecting you." With that, the game was on a deadly dance between two men who had once shared a complicated bond, now pitted against each other in a battle that would determine the fate of Neo-Chicago itself. Would Marcus use the truth memory to expose Krov's corruption and bring about his downfall, or would he succumb to the darkness within himself and join forces with the man he despised most? Before returning to Marcus's face with renewed interest, "A true memory," he repeated thoughtfully. "That could be powerful." "You know exactly what I'm talking about," Marcus countered, sensing an opportunity. "You've been trying to suppress it for years. The truth about Neo-Chicago's origins, the real reason we're stuck in this dystopian nightmare." Krov raised a hand, silencing him. "Enough of that old rhetoric," he snapped, his mask slipping momentarily. "I know more than enough about our origins to ensure my survival. And the stability of this city," Krov finished firmly, regaining control over himself. He glanced at Lena, who stood frozen beside Marcus, her eyes darting between the two men. "You do well to remember whose side you're on." Marcus's gaze didn't waver. "There is no side here," he said coldly. "Only truth and lies. And I've seen enough of both to know which one prevails in Neo-Chicago." He turned his attention back to Krov, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. "I will expose you, Viktor, your corruption, your manipulation, everything." Krov's face darkened with rage. In an instant, he lunged at Marcus, grabbing him by the collar and slamming him against the wall with inhuman strength. Lena cried out, but before she could intervene, Krov had pinned Marcus's wrists to the crates above his head. "You dare threaten me?" Krov spat into Marcus's face, his breath hot and rank. "I can make you disappear like a bad memory." Marcus stared back at him defiantly, his eyes burning with determination. He was done playing the games of Neo-Chicago's elite. It was time to take a stand against the darkness that had consumed them all. In that moment, as he gazed into Krov's hate-filled eyes, Marcus knew what he had to do. With Lena watching intently from the sidelines, he used his free hand to slip the truth memory into Krov's pocket, a silent weapon, aimed at bringing down the Empire from within. The consequences would be dire. There was no turning back now. Krov's grip tightened on Marcus's wrists as understanding dawned in those cold eyes. "You," he hissed venomously, "will never see daylight again." Marcus met his gaze unflinchingly, a prisoner of his own convictions, ready to face whatever lay ahead. The warehouse fell silent except for the sound of Krov's rapid breathing. A moment later, Lena was at Marcus's side once more, her hand clasped tightly in his as they braced themselves for what would surely be a brutal confrontation. In the darkness, a plan began to take shape, a desperate gamble to bring down the corrupt government and free Neo-Chicago from its shackles. They had reached a point of no return, their fates intertwined like the threads of an ancient tapestry, some threads already fraying under the strain of the truth they now held. Yet, even in the face of such overwhelming odds, Marcus refused to be swayed by fear or doubt. He would see this through, no matter what lay beyond the precipice. For Neo-Chicago, for Lena, and for a chance at redemption, however elusive it may prove to be, he was ready to risk everything. The clock had struck midnight on their world, ushering in an era of reckoning and revolution, a new dawn for a city born from lies and deceit, forged in the fires of truth and courage. Now all they needed was to light the match that would set it ablaze. As Krov's grip tightened around his wrists, Marcus drew strength from the memory of Lena's steadfast gaze, his mind racing with strategies and contingencies. The battle for Neo-Chicago had only just begun, and in this war of truth against tyranny, he knew they must fight to win if they hoped to survive. With a deep breath, Marcus steeled himself, ready to face whatever the night would bring, for better or worse. The choice was made, the die was cast, and as the warehouse faded into darkness around them, Marcus and Lena embarked on their perilous quest, a journey that could either save their city or seal its doom forever. The fate of Neo-Chicago hung in the balance, the weight of a single truth memory capable of toppling empires, or so they hoped. Only time would tell if their gamble would pay off. All they knew was that they had to try, no matter what lay ahead, a path lit only by the faint glow of the truth and the unyielding resolve of its defenders. The city was alive with chaos, its darkened skyscrapers a testament to the turmoil that gripped Neo-Chicago. Marcus Vex and Lena Rourke slipped through the shadows, their footsteps echoing off crumbling walls as they made their way back to the resistance stronghold. Behind them, Victor Krov's henchmen scoured the streets, searching for any sign of the fugitives. Their desperation was palpable in the air, a tangible force that pressed down upon Marcus and Lena like a suffocating shroud. Every corner they turned, every alley they fled into, held potential danger. Yet, even as fear threatened to overwhelm them, it paled in comparison to their determination. For weeks, they'd worked tirelessly behind the scenes, gathering evidence, forging alliances, planning strategy to bring down the corrupt government and its tyrannical ruler, Mayor Orlov. And now, with the truth memory at their disposal, they were ready to strike. As they approached the warehouse, Lena stopped short, her gaze locked on something in the distance. Marcus followed her line of sight. A group of heavily armed riot police assembled near the entrance, led by none other than Victor Krov himself. His cold, calculating eyes scanned the crowd before him, his grip on his shock baton tightening with anticipation. "Looks like they're expecting us," Marcus murmured, his voice barely audible over the din of nearby protests and sirens. Time to show them we're not afraid. They moved forward together, Marcus ever the charmer, Lena an enigma shrouded in mystery, their presence commanding attention even amidst the sea of faces around them. As they drew nearer, Krov's eyes narrowed, his face twisting into a scowl. Marcus flashed him a mocking grin, expecting to find us cornered and helpless. "I'm afraid you've been misinformed, Krov." He reached into his jacket, a deliberate move designed to keep the memory card close at hand, and activated the small device concealed within. A soft hum filled the air as the warehouse's security systems came under Marcus's control cameras, spinning to face him. Doors sliding open to reveal hidden escape routes. Krav snarled in frustration. "You can't outrun us forever, Vex." "No, but we can outmaneuver you." Marcus's eyes met Lena's, a silent understanding passing between them. It was time to play their ace the truth memory that would bring the entire house of cards tumbling down. With a final flourish, Marcus held up the memory card for all to see, a beacon of hope in the city drowning in deceit. "The game is over, Krav. The people have seen the truth. You're nothing but Orlov's puppet." And now, he pressed play on the device, and the warehouse erupted into chaos as the truth memory flooded every available screen, every citizen's augmented reality, implants, every news feed, every surveillance camera. The weight of Neo-Chicago's darkest secrets washed over them. The corruption, the brutality, the lies all exposed for the world to see. The crowd before Marcus and Lena erupted into a frenzied cacophony of cheers, jeers, and cries as people either embraced the truth or recoiled in horror. Krav's men wavered, some joining the rebellion, others bolting in fear as Orlov's empire crumbled beneath the weight of its own deceit. In that moment, standing at the epicenter of revolution, Marcus knew they'd succeeded. Their gamble had paid off. The city would never be the same again, and neither would he and Lena. Together, they'd ignited a fire that would consume everything in its path, and they were ready to face whatever lay ahead, a future forged in the flames of truth and freedom. They had barely an hour before the city would descend further into chaos as desperate gangs fought for power in the power vacuum left by Orlov's collapse. Marcus knew they needed to move, and fast. "Lena, we need to get out of here," he said urgently, his eyes scanning the warehouse floor, searching for any trace of Viktor Krav or his men. She nodded in agreement, her face set with determination as she checked the weapons at their disposal, a motley collection of stolen police issue and homemade firearms. "We'll take the rear exit," Marcus said, leading her toward a loading dock door hidden behind crates and boxes. They pushed through, stepping out into an alleyway that seemed to stretch on forever in both directions. Marcus glanced up at the darkening sky. The sun had set hours ago, but Neo-Chicago's artificial illumination would keep them bathed in the sickly glow until dawn. "We need to find somewhere safe, somewhere we can regroup." Lena fell into step beside him, her eyes darting from side to side as she surveyed their surroundings. Marcus knew they had to move quickly. The city was no safer than ever, and with Orlov's fall, the resistance had become a prime target for both government loyalists and power-hungry thugs. A flicker of movement caught his eye, a figure stepping out of a nearby doorway, hands visible as he approached them. Marcus's heart skipped a beat before he recognized Viktor Krav, their former contact now turned enemy. "Lena," he whispered urgently, grabbing her arm and tugging her back into the shadows just as Krav reached the alleyway entrance. Krav paused, scanning the darkened alley with an expression of unease on his face. For a moment, Marcus thought he might turn and run, but then he spotted them, huddled in the darkness. "You," Krav spat out, pointing at Marcus with a shaking finger. "You did this. You brought down Orlov's empire." Marcus held up his hands in a placating gesture. The last thing they needed was another firefight. "Viktor, please, there's no reason for violence now." Krav laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. "No reason? You've destroyed everything. I had a future, power, influence. I'll never be able to regain that." Marcus shook his head. "You're wrong. You still have a chance. Join us, help rebuild this city on the foundation of truth and freedom." For a long moment, Krav stood there. Marcus could practically see the wheels turning in his mind as he weighed his options. Then, with a sudden movement, he reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small device. "I have another option," he said, a cruel smile twisting his lips. "One that doesn't involve dying or going to prison." Lena tensed beside Marcus, readying herself for whatever Krav had planned. But it was too late. The device in Victor's hand detonated with a blinding flash and deafening boom, a tactical nuke designed to annihilate everything within a 100-foot radius. Marcus felt himself flying through the air, and then everything went black. When he came to, he was lying on his back, his head throbbing as if it had been split open. He tried to sit up, but a wave of dizziness washed over him, a sensation that left him doubled over and retching. Slowly, his vision cleared, revealing a world forever changed. The warehouse where they'd exposed Orloff was nothing more than a smoldering crater. The walls collapsed, the roof pancaked into rubble, smoke billowing into the night sky like a dark halo. And amidst it all, he saw her, Lina. She crouched beside him, concern etched on her face as she helped him sit upright. "Marcus, are you okay?" He nodded, still trying to clear the cobwebs from his mind. The world felt unreal, a surreal nightmare that wouldn't end. "We need to move," Lina said urgently, helping him to his feet before scanning their surroundings. They were in an open area, a plaza filled with the remnants of shattered buildings and twisted metal. "We can't stay here." Marcus followed her gaze, spotting a group of survivors huddled together on the other side of the plaza. Resistors, they had survived Orlov's collapse just like them. With Lina guiding him, Marcus made his way toward them. At his side, Marcus began to make his way toward the group, a ragtag collection of rebels and ordinary citizens who'd finally found the courage to stand up against their oppressors. They were battered and bruised but alive. As they approached, Marcus felt a sense of purpose wash over him, the realization that this was only the beginning. The fight for Neo-Chicago's future had just begun, and he and Lina would be at its forefront. Together they joined the resistance, a new family forged in the fires of revolution. As they plotted their next move, whatever lay ahead, they were ready to face it head-on, a new chapter in a city rebuilt on truth and freedom. The group welcomed them warmly, though cautiously. They had heard stories about Marcus's past exploits, both as a criminal and later as an ally to the resistance. Still, his reputation as a mastermind in the black market was undeniable. "What now?" one of the rebels asked Lina, her voice tinged with anxiety. "We've exposed Orlov and brought down the government, but we still have so much work ahead," Marcus interrupted, his determination palpable even amidst the uncertainty. "Viktor Krov's true identity is still out there somewhere. Whoever he is, they're likely to be high-ranking officials or wealthy elites who could not only resist our efforts but potentially sabotage them from within." The rebels nodded in agreement, their eyes filled with resolve as they began discussing possible next steps. Amidst the heated debate, Marcus couldn't shake off his lingering unease about using the truth memory for personal gain rather than solely to expose corruption. Lina sensed his turmoil and took a moment to pull him aside. "Marcus," she said softly, her voice carrying an unspoken understanding of his internal conflict, "you know as well as I do that your past actions will always be scrutinized, perhaps even more so now that you're part of the resistance." She reached out and touched his hand reassuringly. "But you've made a choice to stand with us, to fight for something greater than just yourself or your own gain. That's what matters, the direction of your heart, not just your head." Marcus felt a surge of gratitude toward Lina. She had been by his side through the darkest moments and now stood as a beacon of hope in this new world. He knew she was right, that it didn't matter how he came to possess the truth memory or what initially drove him to use it. What mattered was where that power would lead them from here. Together, they rejoined the group, their decision made now more than ever. Marcus and Lina were committed to rebuilding Neo-Chicago on a foundation of transparency and freedom. They had faced down corruption and tyranny. Their next battle awaited just beyond the ruins of this once nightmarish city. As dawn broke over the horizon, casting an ethereal glow across the wreckage of Neo-Chicago, the resistance set off toward their unknown future, a future where truth and justice would rise from the ashes of deceit and oppression. With Lina by his side, Marcus walked through the desolate streets with a sense of purpose he had never known before. Ahead lay uncharted territory, the path to rebuilding not just the city but society as a whole, and they were ready to face whatever challenges awaited them head-on. Their journey would be fraught with danger and uncertainty, but Marcus knew that as long as Lena stood beside him, no obstacle was too great to overcome. In this new world of possibility, their bond had become stronger than ever, a testament to the power of hope in the darkest of times, and together they would forge a brighter future for all those who had suffered beneath the weight of Neo-Chicago's corrupt regime. The road ahead would be long and arduous, but Marcus was ready. With Lena by his side, he felt invincible, as though nothing could stand in their way as they embarked on this brave new chapter in human history. As Marcus and Lena traversed Neo-Chicago's wasteland, their minds were consumed by thoughts of Victor Krov, the man who had orchestrated this dystopian nightmare from behind the shadows. They knew that to truly rebuild society, they would need to confront him head-on. "It won't be easy," Lena said, her eyes locked on Marcus as she walked beside him through the rubble-strewn streets. "Krov has friends in high places, people who still cling to power. And I have a score to settle with him," Marcus added, his voice tinged with anger and resolve. "I know," Lena replied, placing a reassuring hand on his arm. "But we can't let our personal vendettas cloud our judgment. We need to approach this strategically, get the support of as many people as possible before we confront Krov directly." Marcus nodded in agreement, knowing she was right. They needed to be smart about this, not just reckless. As they continued their journey through the ruins, they made plans to gather allies among the resistance groups scattered throughout the city and beyond. Days turned into weeks, and their efforts began to pay off. More people joined their cause, drawn in by Lena's charisma and Marcus's conviction. Together they formed a formidable force ready to challenge the remnants of Neo-Chicago's oppressive regime. Finally, the day arrived when they were ready to face Victor Krov. Under the guise of negotiations, they arranged a clandestine meeting with him in an abandoned factory on the outskirts of town. As Marcus and Lena entered the dimly lit room, Krov sat calmly behind a makeshift desk, the picture of composure. "Greetings," Krov said, his voice dripping with condescension. "I must say, I'm impressed by your audacity. You really think you can take me down?" "We're not here to make idle threats," Marcus replied, his tone firm but measured. "We have the truth on our side, the truth about Neo-Chicago's corruption and the suffering it caused. It's time for the world to see what you've been hiding." Lena retorted, her voice laced with venom. "We have proof, a treasure trove of evidence that exposes your crimes for all the world to see." Krov's smirk faltered, and for a moment Marcus saw a glimmer of uncertainty in his eyes, the first chink in the armor of his arrogance. "Very well," Krov said finally, his voice steady once more. "If you have such incriminating evidence, bring it forth. Let the world judge me." Without hesitation, Marcus pulled out his comms device and initiated a live broadcaster feed that would reach every corner of the globe. As he began to reveal the truth about Neo-Chicago's dark past, Lena joined in her words, dripping with conviction, as she described the horrors the resistance had faced at the hands of Krov's regime. As they spoke, the room began to fill with murmurs, the first signs of dissent from the loyalists still present. Marcus and Lena continued their expose, painting a vivid picture of the atrocities committed by Neo-Chicago's leaders, acts that would shock even the most jaded souls. When they finished, an uneasy silence fell over the factory floor, a silence broken only by the sound of murmurs and whispers, as those who had once supported Krov began to doubt their loyalty. In that moment, Marcus felt a sense of vindication, a feeling he had longed for since his own memories were stolen from him. And then, without warning, everything changed. A massive explosion rocked the factory, sending debris flying in all directions. As the dust settled, Marcus and Lena found themselves faced with an unexpected sight: an army of resistance fighters, armed to the teeth and ready for battle. "It's over," a voice boomed from among their ranks, a man who had been instrumental in bringing down Neo-Chicago's regime. Victor Krov is dead killed by his own hand in the chaos that ensued after your broadcast. Marcus and Lena exchanged a look of shock, then relief, followed by an overwhelming sense of triumph. In the days and weeks that followed, Marcus and Lena played key roles in rebuilding Neo-Chicago. They worked tirelessly to establish a new government, one based on transparency, justice, and the protection of individual rights, and they watched as their city slowly began to transform into a beacon of hope for those who had been oppressed by the regime. And though they faced many challenges along the way, the task of rebuilding after such devastation was monumental. Marcus and Lena stood side by side through it all, a testament to the power of love, loyalty, and determination in the face of adversity. Together, they forged a future where truth and freedom would reign supreme and where no one would ever again have to endure the horrors that Neo-Chicago had inflicted upon them. As Marcus looked out over the city he now called home, he knew that their journey was far from over, that there would always be more memories to uncover, more injustices to confront. But with Lena by his side and a new dawn breaking on the horizon, he felt invincible, as though nothing could stand in their way as they embarked on this brave new chapter in human history. The story of Marcus Vex, black market memory broker turned revolutionary hero, came to an end, a tale of redemption, love, and the unyielding pursuit of truth. And as Neo-Chicago rose from its ashes, so too did a brighter future for everyone.